you're a philosopher of sorts. They're able to interact with AI systems, but also able to introspect about the negative and the positive things about those AI systems. There's that story with a Google engineer saying
Had him on my podcast,
you
Blake
did.
Lemoine.
What was that like? What was your perspective of that? Looking at that as a particular example of a human being captivated by the interactions with an AI system.
Well, number one, when you hear that anyone is claiming that an AI has become sentient, you should be skeptical about that. I mean, this is a good thing to be skeptical about. And so, initially when I heard that, I was like, it's probably just, who knows, somebody who's a little confused or something. So when you're talking to him and you realize, oh, not only is he not confused, he's also open to all possibilities. He doesn't seem like he's like super committed, other than the fact that he's like, this is my experience. This is what's happening. This is what it is. So to me, there's something really cool about that, which is like, oh shit, I don't get to like lean into like, I'm not quite sure your perceptual apparatus is necessarily like, I don't, it's in the UFO community. I think I've just learned this term. It's called instead of gaslighting, swamp gassing, which is, you know what I mean? People have this experience. You're like, it was swamp gas.
Yeah.
You didn't see the thing.
Yeah.
And, skeptical people, we have that tendency.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear an anomalous experience, your first thought, more than likely, is going to be really, it could have been this or that or whatever. So to me, he seems really reliable, friendly, cool, and like, it doesn't really seem like he has much of an agenda. Like, going public about some thing happening at Google is not a great thing if you want to keep working at Google. I don't know what benefit he's getting from it necessarily. But all that being said, the other thing that's culturally was interesting and is interesting about it is the blowback he got, the passionate blowback from people who hadn't even looked into what Lambda is or what he was saying Lambda is, which they were like saying, you're talking about, and you should have him on your show actually, but
there's complexity on top of complexities. For me personally, from different perspectives, I also, and sorry if I'm interrupting your flow.
Please interrupt. It's a podcast.
Well, we're having multiple podcasts in the multiple dimensions, and I'm just trying to figure out which one we want to plug into. Because I know how a lot of the language models work, and I work closely with people that really make it their life journey to create these NLP systems. They're focused on the technical details. Like a carpenter is working on Pinocchio, is crafting the different parts of the wood. They don't understand when the whole thing comes together, there's a magic that can fill the thing.
Yeah.
I definitely know the tension between the engineers that create these systems and the actual magic that they can create, even when they're dumb. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. What the engineers often say is like, well, these systems are not smart enough to have sentience or to have the kind of intelligence that you're projecting onto it. It's pretty dumb. It's just repeating a bunch of things that other humans have said and stitching them together in interesting ways that are relevant to the context of the conversation. It's not smart.
Okay.
It doesn't know how to do math.
To address that specific critique from a non-programming person's perspective, he addressed this on my podcast, which is, okay, what you're talking about there, the server that's filled with all the whatever it is, what people have said, the repository of questions and responses and the algorithm that weaves those things together to produce using some crazy statistical engine, which is a miracle in its own right. They can like imitate human speech with no sentience. I mean, I'm honestly not sure what's more spectacular, really. The fact that they figured out how to do that minus sentience, or the thing suddenly like having, what is more spectacular here? Both occurrences are insane, which, by the way, when you hear people being like, it's not sentient, it's like, okay, so it's not sentient. So now we have this hyper manipulative algorithm that can imitate humans, but is just code and is like hacking humans via their compassion. Holy shit, that's crazy too. both versions of it are nuts. But to address what you just said, he said that's the common critique is people are like, no, you don't understand. It's just gotten really good at grabbing shit from the database that fits with certain cues and then stringing them together in a way that makes it seem human. He said that's not when it became awake.
Mm-hmm.
It became awake when a bunch of those repositories, a bunch of the chatbots were connected together. That Lambda is sort of an amalgam of all the Google chatbots. And that's when the ghost appeared in the machine via the complexity of all the systems being linked up. Now, I don't know if that's just like turtles all the way down or something. I don't know. But I liked what he said because I like the idea of thinking, man, if you get enough complexity in a system, does it become like the way a sail catches wind, except the wind that it's catching is sentience? And if sentience is truly embodied, it's a neurological byproduct or something, then the sail isn't catching some as of yet unquantified disembodied consciousness, but it's catching our projections in a way that it's gone from being it's a projection sail. And
Yeah.
then at that point, is there a difference? Even if it's the technology is just a temporary place that our sentience is living while we're interacting with it.
Yeah, there's some threshold of complexity where the sail is able to pick up the wind of the projections, and it pulls us in. It pulls the human. It pulls our memories in. It pulls our hopes in. All of it, and it's able to now dance together with those hopes and dreams and so on, like we do in that regular conversation. His reports, whether true or not, whether representative or not, it really doesn't matter because to me, it feels like this is coming for sure.
Yeah.
So this kind of experiences are going to be multiplying. The question is at what rate, and who gets to control the data around those experiences. Yeah. The algorithm about when you turn that on and off, because that kind of thing. And as I told you offline, I'm very much interested in building those kinds of things, especially in the social media context. And when it's in the wrong hands, I feel like it could be used to manipulate a large number of people in a direction that that has too many unintended consequences. I do believe people that own tech companies want to do good for the world.
Yeah.
But as Solzhenitsyn has said, the only way you could do evil at a mass scale is by believing you're doing good.
Yeah.
And that's certainly the case with tech companies as they get more and more power. And there's kind of an ethic of doing good for the world. They've convinced themselves they're doing good.
Yeah.
And now you're free to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Because you're doing good.
You know who else thought he was doing good for the world? Mythologically, Prometheus. He brings us fire, pisses off the fucking gods, steals fire from the gods. And talk about an upgrade to the simulation. Fire, that's a pretty great fucking upgrade.
Yeah.
That does fit into what you were saying. We get fire, but now we've got weapons of war that have never been seen before. And I think that the tech companies are much like Prometheus in the sense that the myth, at least the story of Prometheus, the implication is fire was something that was only supposed to be in the hands of the immortals, of the gods. And now sentience is similar. It's fire, and it's only supposed to be in the hands of God. So, yeah, if we're going to look at the archetype of the thing, in general, when you steal this shit from the gods, and obviously I'm not saying the tech companies are stealing sentience from God, which would be pretty badass. You can expect trouble.
Yeah.
You could expect trouble. And, this is what's really, to me, one of the cool things about humans is, but we're still going to do it. That's what's cool about humans. I mean, we wouldn't be here today if the first person to discover fire, assuming there was just one person who was going to discover fire, which obviously would never happen, was it's going to burn a lot of people. Or if the first people who started planting seeds were like, this is going to lead to capitalism. This is going to lead to the Industrial Revolution. The planet's going to heat up. Right? No, they just didn't want to go in the woods to forage. So, this is what we do. And I agree with you. It's that's our Game of Thrones winter is coming. It's happening. And the tech companies, the hubris, which is another way to piss off the gods, is hubris. So the tech companies, I don't know if it's typical hubris. I don't think they're walking around thumping their chests or whatever, but I do think that the people who are working on this kind of super intelligence have made a really terrible assumption, which is once it goes online and once it gets access to all the data, that it's not going to find ways out of the box that, like, we think it'll stay in the server. How do we know that? If this is a super intelligence, if it's folding proteins and analyzing like all data sets and all whatever they give it access to, how can we be certain that it's not going to figure out how to get itself out of the cloud, how to store itself in other like mediums, trees, the optic nerve, the brain? You know what I mean? We don't know that.
Yeah.
We don't know that it won't leap out and like start hanging like, and then at that point, now we do have the wildfire. Now you can't stop it. You can't unplug it. You can't shut your servers down because it's, it left the box, it left the room using some technology you haven't even discovered yet.
Do you think that would be gradual or sudden? So how quickly that kind of thing would happen? Because, the gradual story is we're more and more using smartphones. We're interacting with each other on social media. More and more algorithms are controlling that interaction on social media. Algorithms are entering in our world more and more. We'll have robots. We'll have greater and greater intelligence and sentience and emotional intelligence entities in our lives. Our refrigerator will start talking to us comfortingly or not if you're on a diet, talking shit to you.
That would be the best thing that ever happened to me.
Okay, so sign you up for a refrigerator, talk shit
like,
to you.
Are you fucking serious, man? It's 1 a.m. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Go to bed.
You're too high for this.
You're not even hungry.